So a whistleblower has come forward, a DOGE whistleblower, about a massive data breach at the agency he worked for. He's an IT worker there. He noticed it after the DOGE people came in, and he thought it was wrong what's going on, and he's been physically threatened before he came forward with the information, which he talks about, and he talks about exactly what he saw and how he worked it out and why he came forward. I've already made one video about this on the other channel, The Art of Value. We can get more into it today. I'll put a link to that other video if you haven't seen that yet. If you have, there's new information here, so let's get into it. So this is the PBS interview. The other one was from CNN. This is a bit more in depth, so let's get straight into it.
When and how did you notice that something wasn't right, something was going on?
I was doing metrics review, kind of looking around, trying to do optimization of our own, because we're always trying to save money.
Always trying to save money. So DOGE is about efficiency, trying to save money. He says that they're always trying to do that anyway. So
we noticed something that was off. Me and a couple different people noticed different points, but it kind of added up to a bigger picture. They're called indicators of compromise in the private sector. And so when I noticed these indicators, red flags went off in my head, and I said, something's up here. So I investigated farther at that point. At first, I didn't have a good picture, so I started to try to rule out possibilities of what benign could have caused these large exfiltration of data, could cause these large spikes of internal transfers.
Exfiltration of data, to be clear,
Sure.
You saw a large amount of data being moved out of the NLRB system. Is that right?
That's correct, leaving a network interface that faces towards the public internet, something that would only occur if you were to transfer a file outside of our secure system.
So we're talking about 10 gig of information here, which he saw go out, and there's a graph, a big spike there where he saw it go out. So he's just obviously suspecting that DOGE is transferring it out. That's why he's being a whistleblower, and it was exposed to the outside internet and to other countries and to hackers as well. Very dangerous. So this is from MSNBC, cutting to this because this is where he shows the graph. Let's have a look.
So what we're looking at there in the picture is the outgoing data out of from our internal network. There's also a correlating spike in the outgoing data from the database that houses our internal case data. So things like proprietary company secrets, union organizer names, private affidavits of unfair labor practice complainants. These are things that traditionally would be kept in a judicial system behind lock and key, and not anything to do with efficiency for sure.
Nothing to do with efficiency or fraud or waste, perhaps, or corruption. Perhaps this is the corruption.
And in the affidavit, you say that you detected the removal of 10 gigabytes worth of data. Do you have any idea what kind of data we're talking about? Why this would cause concern?
Sure. So what that data spike correlated with was data that was transferred off of an internal record-keeping device that was only used for internal case data. So this system only has the private information about union organizers, the privileged business proprietary technologies, competitors, those kind of things are in that system only. There's no other data, there's nothing else except that. So that correlated data spike lined up at the exact time window and the same amount. And so that's what we can determine was taken, was data out of that system particularly.
He knows where it was taken from and exactly when it was taken, when the DOGE people, after the DOGE people got there and they were doing stuff.
Andrew, the White House responded to our request with a statement about this, and they said, quote, it's months old news that President Trump signed an executive order to hire DOGE employees at agencies and coordinate data sharing. Their highly qualified team has been extremely public and transparent in its efforts to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse across the executive branch, including the NLRB.
So they're arguing that they're being transparent there. As I said in the other video, far from transparent. They haven't said anything about this. Elon said they haven't taken data out. It could be accidentally. It wasn't them taking it out, but they opened it up and it got taken out.
This is all part of their work that they're doing to cut waste, fraud, and abuse.
If the administration is taking the position that having data exfiltrated out of the United States government and potentially into other nation states, if that's about efficiency and effectiveness for the nation, it doesn't make any sense. Within 15 minutes of DOGE engineers creating accounts, usernames and passwords within internal systems within DOGE, within 15 minutes of the creation of those accounts, somebody or something from Russia tried to log in with all of the right credentials, meaning they had the right usernames and the right passwords. And the question is, How do they get that, and why?
So this would have been a huge red flag for this IT guy, seeing people taking it from Russia.
The second question that I have is that why is it that, from what Dan has seen, as well as others, because we have spoken to other individuals who are able to corroborate this, which is that some of the data is also using Starlink as a backdoor. And that's another way to get data out of internal databases within agencies. And Starlink has now direct access where information is likely, we believe, is funneled directly into Russia.
So let me ask you, based on the evidence you've seen, do you have a view about why the DOGE team would have been accessing and exfiltrating, sending out all of this data?
That I don't know. I don't want to speculate as to the why, because there are so many questions that would, subsequent questions that would lead to. Yeah. But that certainly is the questions, why are they doing this? Now, part of it may be, there's a component where this could be intentional. There's also a component where this is simply sloppiness. I mean, another thing that we have seen within databases within the government, as Dan will be able to talk about, is that internal databases throughout the government have been opened to the open internet.
Yeah, that's the key.
So these exposed to the open internet. Is it a big stuff up, or is it being done on purpose? That's a massive question here. There needs to be an investigation. Congress needs to be involved. Lack of transparency with Congress so far from DOGE, although just the propaganda saying that they have a huge amount of transparency. Obviously, that is rubbish.
These are not just my agency. These are Department of Treasury. These are Department of Energy, Department of Defense. So these are the critical systems that those agencies use that basically turn on the porch light for other foreign nation states to come on in.
So he's talking about other agencies. He knows people. We've said this in interviews. Knows other people that haven't come forward, too scared to come forward with similar issues, similar things that they've seen.
I need to ask you as well, Daniel, because Mr. Musk's own companies have faced complaints at the NLRB. We know he brought just last year a case to federal court, basically arguing that the agency structure was unconstitutional, arguing it shouldn't exist in the first place. Is there any way of knowing if the DOGE team accessed any information related to cases about Elon Musk?
One of the frustrating things about this is there's been roadblocks introduced along the way. One of the things I don't have is access to that level of data. Those logs and records of what was accessed during that time are missing, and just coincidentally missing after the data spike incident. No other period of time is missing except that small window.
Wow, so some logs are missing just for that period where this stuff was going on. It reminds me of movies where they go in and delete the CCTV footage similar to that. And this guy, Dan, is obviously really concerned about that. It's a massive red flag that he saw there.
From your view, would you know if other people have access to that?
They were deleted entirely.
You were able to confirm that?
Yes. I had another 8. Yes, absolutely.
Another key point to your question is that, the data that was flying out of NLRB was case-related data. It was their internal case management system. So given the fact that, an entire libraries or an entire encyclopedia worth of information has been flying out, is it plausible that that would include any of Elon Musk's corporate information? It's very possible.
Big picture, was it an easy decision to come forward, to say this publicly, to get a lawyer, to be a whistleblower? Why decide to do that?
It was never a question whether or not to do the right thing. That was always my agenda. But how I did it, or whether or not I did it, honestly, was absolutely a question. It's my safety. That's there's so much at play that I didn't realize too, but I'm standing behind it. I'm putting my name to it, and that's just who I am.
You mentioned your safety.
So if you saw the other video on this, you would have heard about the safety here, and it jogged my memory to another incident involving Tesla a few years ago where a similar thing happened to this. I'm not alleging that Elon Musk had anything to do with it, but it did. The only thing that I can think of that jogged my memory recently of a similar thing to what he's about to talk about that happened.
Why do you mention that?
We had an incident. Go ahead.
This is a difficult topic for Dan to discuss, but prior to our filing the whistleblower disclosure this week, last week, somebody went to Dan's home and taped a threatening note, a menacing note on his door with personal information
While
within
he was at work, yeah.
While he was at work, and it also contained photographs of him walking his dog taken by a drone. So
This was on your front door to your home.
Taped straight on, not inconspicuous, just right there in a white envelope.
you can't get any more direct threat than that.
It is so menacing. Taking a drone photo of him walking a dog and then threatening him with a note. This is really sinister stuff. And, you know, somebody's obviously concerned about this information coming out.
Right thing to do. What do you want to see happen next?
Just a full investigation. That's all I've wanted, is just somebody to come in and validate, tell me why I'm wrong. Just come in and say, this is because of this. And so far, I've been unable to find that. Looked throughout my agency, tried to go outside of my agency, and that was not successful.
Okay, so this is back on MSNBC, where he's talking about other people coming forward, the possibility of it. That's why it's included it here. He's very brave to come forward like this, and he wants others to do that too.
This is more than just the NLRB. Dan is here because he's been brave enough to come forward with what he saw, what he witnessed, what he can actually establish through forensic data. We have heard from others there are many people like Dan, but who are afraid to come forward. And the reason why Dan came forward is not just to ensure that the truth comes out, but that other folks like him have the courage to come forward, because a lot of people believe or think that something is amiss, that this is happening within our agencies, within our government. But guess what? It is. And we have the evidence to establish that. And we need other people to come forward, because you know what? And one of my colleagues has said this once in the past, and it's so true. Courage is contagious. And this is in part why Dan is here and speaking with you today, not behind a silhouette or a screen, but directly to you today and to everybody. So that way we can hear what's actually happening.
I agree. It's really to the point of where I feel like there's a culture of fear in the government right now that we're trying to combat. And by coming forward and standing up, even with this happening, I feel like fear and apathy are the death of democracy, and we can kind of, fight that if somebody's able to just show that they can do this and it's okay. I have plenty of other friends at other agencies that are terrified right now to come forward with what they have, and my hope is that they see this and they're able to do that now.
Wow. So he knows people personally that could come forward in a similar way, and probably multiple agencies that have had similar things happen, where Elon's saying we're all transparent and everything's above board. But obviously, allegedly here, he's saying that something is wrong. Something is very wrong with these data breaches.
One of the things that Dan has told me is that he hopes that he's wrong.
Absolutely.
This is not something that we want to be the case, but we've been able to stress test this not just through Dan's own research and investigation, but through subject matter experts with whom we've worked in preparing this disclosure. And so what we're asking for is an investigation, somebody to look at this and take this seriously, because you know what? There's personal identifiable information affecting American citizens that's flying out from the United States government. I mean, at some point, we all have to collectively wake up and say no and rebuild. Because unfortunately, I'm concerned that we're in a place where we can't undo what has been done, but we can know what happened, who did something wrong, hold people accountable, even if it's, at some point in time in the future, and rebuild, because that's where we need to be.
And again, the request here is for an independent investigation by law enforcement and Congress.
There you go. Congress needs to get involved. Elon Musk needs to go in front of Congress. The DOGE people, lots of questions need to be asked about this to see what has actually happened, if it's happening, if it's widespread, when Elon's saying that he's not taking the data and it's being exposed to the open internet. This seems to be what is happening. So what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments what you think about this, what should be done. And I'm going to put a link to the other video if you haven't seen that up here, if you're watching this on YouTube, that first video I made about this on the other channel. And do subscribe here. This is a new channel, only 5 videos on here. We're nearly up to 500 subscribers already, which is great on this politics channel. So do subscribe if you're new. And thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.